Angela, have you turned us on?
Yes, sir.
Can we start?
Anybody else need a pen?
No, sir.
At this time, we would like to call to order the Board of Zoning Appeals meeting for November 18th, 2014. If you would, please stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right.
This time, I'd like to introduce the board members, starting on my left.
Sumit Shah.
Todd Chernick. Christopher Bloor.
Gary Willis.
Walt Recook.
Are there any adoptions or amendments of the agenda? And we need a motion to either adopt or amend.
I would like to basically adopt the agenda presented to us for the November 18th Board of Zoning Appeals meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of adopting the agenda as written, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Pass unanimously. This time we need to approve the October meeting minutes. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I'm sorry. Go
No,
ahead.
go ahead, sir.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the October meeting minutes as presented.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? All in favor of approval of the October 2014 meeting minutes, raise your right hand. Opposed, same side. The Board of Zoning Appeals is a quasi-legal board composed of resident volunteers of the City of Milton. The board is charged with hearing requests for variances from the standards of the zoning ordinance and appeals of administrative determinations. With regard to decisions on primary variances, the board's basis for decision is provided by these four considerations. A, relief if granted would not offend the spirit or intent of the ordinance. And B, there are such extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property that the literal or strict application of the ordinance would create an unnecessary hardship due to size, shape, or topography, or other extraordinary and exceptional situations or conditions not caused by the variance applicant. And C, relief if granted would not cause substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding properties. And D, that the public safety, health, and welfare are secured and that substantial justice is done. That brings us to our first variance, which is V14-019. Angela, would you like to present?
Thank you. Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff would like to request a deferral on this case. The owner and engineers are still basically trying to figure out whether or not they want to go forward with the requested variance. Staff has made some requests and pointed out some things in the ordinance that they are trying to decide whether or not they want to comply with in order to make the variance work.
Okay. Do we have a motion to defer?
I'll make a motion to defer case number V14-019 to the December 2014 meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of deferring V14-019 to the December 2014 BZA meeting, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Passed unanimously. Brings us to V14-020. Angela, would you please present?
Yes, sir. V14-020, the site, 12632 Lacoma Trace, is a single-family home in the Crabapple Crossroads subdivision. It consists of 0.16 acres and is located in the T4 transect zone of the Crabapple Crossroads form-based code overlay. Rob Lehman of Lehman Custom Pools is requesting a variance on behalf of the property owners. They are seeking a variance to construct an approximately 200 square foot free-form in-ground swimming pool to be built approximately 2 feet from the north property line. In addition, the pool equipment will be located 3.3 feet from the property line. This part of the subdivision is unique in that the subject lot, Lot 11, has been granted an easement to use part of the adjacent lot, Lot 13, as its own side yard. This easement area and the rest of the backyard for Lot 11 is surrounded by a 6-foot-tall wooden privacy fence. Section 64, 1609 BIA states that a swimming pool and pool deck and the pool equipment is to be located 10 feet from all property lines. Since Mr. Lehman proposes a pool that is located 2 feet from the north property line and pool equipment located 3.3 from this property line, 3.3 feet from this property line, a variance is required. Design Review Board courtesy review was held on November 4th, 2014. The DRB offered the following comments. Is there a way to position the pool so that you do not have to ask for a variance? It is possible to do this. Provide a letter from lots 9 and 13 saying that they are okay with the pool. Provide a true landscape plan. Find out if egress from back to front is granted to both lots. Access shall be incorporated into the landscape plan. Staff held a focus meeting on November 5th, 2014, in which the following comments were provided. Building plan review, site plan review, arborist, DOT stormwater, all had no comments. The standards for consideration were stated earlier, and the applicant responds as follows. Relief, if granted, would not offend the spirit or intent of the building ordinance. There is an existing 6-foot privacy fence along the rear yard, which will shield the swimming pool from the view of any passerbys. The lot has an extremely small backyard, and so we are proposing a very modest-sized swimming pool as to not create too much of a hardship. Without being granted a variance to impede on the 10-foot setback, the homeowner will not be able to enjoy the benefit of having a swimming pool in their backyard. Relief, if granted, would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounding property due to the swimming pool being fully enclosed by a privacy fence. Also, would not cause any additional traffic or noise, as it is to be utilized and enjoyed by a single family. Staff response. The intent of the Crabapple Crossroads overlay is to create a pedestrian-oriented live-work village. Small lots, sidewalks, street trees, rear-loading garages, and front porches all encourage a walkable, community-oriented neighborhood. The subdivision does have a community pool. At 1.6 acres, the subject lot is small compared to the average Milton lot, but is on par with the other lots in the Crabapple area. The owners were aware of the limitations of the lot when they purchased it. These lots were not designed with the intent of constructing extensive backyard amenities. There are, in fact, options available for building a pool on this site. Something smaller and moved up and over to the left would allow the pool to maintain the required 10-foot setback. The pool equipment is proposed to be placed in the area already designated for the HVAC units. Although Lot 13 has granted Lot 11 an easement to use part of its lot as its own, a pool in such close proximity could potentially cause maintenance issues for the adjacent lot. The pool equipment should not cause an adverse situation as it is located near the existing HVAC units. The general public should not be affected by this request. It is possible to build a pool on this site other than the one proposed. A redesign of the pool will grant the homeowners the amenity that they desire while maintaining the spirit and intent of the Crabapple overlay. Recommended conditions. Should the board choose to approve the application, staff recommends the following conditions. Provide a landscape plan to be approved by the city arborist. Staff recommendation. Staff recommends denial of the request to allow the swimming pool to be located less than 10 feet from a property line as shown. Staff recommends approval of the request to allow the pool equipment to be located less than 10 feet from the property line. This concludes the staff presentation.
Thank you. Any questions from board to the staff? Yes, sir.
Please explain to me the use easement from Lot 13 to Lot 11. Is that something that was basically granted between homeowners and really isn't something that's legally within the final plat? Or is this something that, yeah, I just don't understand. It seems very unusual. So I'm just trying to understand what that is.
The easements aren't shown on the final plat that I'm aware of. Basically, this whole row and some other, and lots similar to this in the subdivision. The lot 11 has permission to use the side lot of lot 13 as its own, and in fact, that area, that shaded area on your site plan is fenced off. So it's kind of like a zero lot line use. Lot 13 still has permit, can access that area for maintenance and that sort of thing. But basically, lot 11 will use that area as their own yard.
Is the same occurring on lot 9 in relationship to lot 11?
Yes.
So I guess what I'm hearing then, it's kind of common in this subdivision that you know, I guess all of these are granted. I guess it's one of those weird situations where it's almost like they're avoiding having a side yard setback on one side by putting a fence right in that line. I guess from a legal standpoint, I guess I'll have to ask the attorney. If someone puts a fence there, even though there's an easement, does that portray the property as being potentially owned by that neighbor? Or how does that
Probably
work?
not, because it's done by way of an easement. I mean, typically, if it was adverse, that would be
Sure.
without permission and knowledge. But if you've got an easement, we all understand our rights.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So there is an understanding, I guess, that that land is treated as if it is lot 11's land. So even though there's a lot line there, it's kind of arbitrary in nature because actually they're using all that grass area all the way to the fence next to lot 13's house. Is that right? Is that how I'm perceiving it?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Can I have a
Yes, sir.
follow-up on that?
You
So,
sure can.
can you identify where that fence is? Is it on lot 13?
Yeah.
According to the site plan, it goes from the corner of the house on lot 13 all the way over to lot 11, the edge of lot 11's driveway.
That's at the front.
That's the back. There's an alley back there.
Right.
They're rear loading.
Angela, I have a question. On page 5, under staff response,
Say that again, I'm sorry.
on page 5,
Okay.
under staff response, you put the owners were aware of the limitations when they purchased this property. Can you go into detail and explain that to me a little more? I mean, did somebody from the staff, or when they bought this, did somebody say you can't put a swimming pool here?
No, we're not saying that you can't put a pool there. We're saying that this neighborhood, the Crabapple area, was built with a specific lifestyle in mind. So, you buy into the lifestyle when you buy a lot in Crabapple. It wasn't meant to be backyard focused. It's kind of meant to be, front yard, front porches and street trees and sidewalks, that sort of thing. So,
Is there a community pool within that neighborhood?
yes, it's small, but there is.
But there is one, okay.
And are the two adjoining homes both occupied now?
Yes.
And do we have letters one way or the other?
I have not received letters.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other questions to staff? At this time, we'd like to invite the applicant forward to please present. And if you would state your name and address, we'd certainly appreciate it.
Oh,
They're not here? No. That's the first.
we have public and no applicant.
All right, Counselor. In our, however many years this has been, this is the first time this has ever happened, so could you advise?
And you provided the opportunity for them to speak by way of a public hearing, but if they're not here, that's simply their choice. They have every right not to attend as well. I think, now to the extent we still need to open it up and see if there's anybody otherwise for or against, I'm assuming.
Yep.
Okay, sure.
Before we do that, do you have access to your email to know if they perhaps have had issues with traffic or otherwise?
They didn't 30 minutes to go, but I can try calling someone.
Should we just take like a 5-minute recess?
Let's you make that motion.
Yeah. All right, I'll make a motion that we take a 5-minute recess.
And then can we
Second
continue
motion,
on with our agenda, so we can take care of other
Yeah,
items?
yeah. Let's do that.
That's a good
All
idea.
right, let's take a 5-minute,
Well, we can readjust the agenda and come back to this.
okay, somebody wants to make that
Now, there's a
motion?
specific Robert's way of doing that.
Okay, well, so to the extent that you all want to basically defer the public hearing until you finished up your next agenda item, just make that in the form of a motion, just to defer the public hearing until you've gone through the next agenda item, V14021.
How about so moved?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'd like to defer V14-020's public hearing to carry on with the variance on V14-021.
I'll second.
Any discussion? We have a motion to defer V14-020 to after we hear V14-021. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same side. It passed unanimously.
Mr. Chairman, real quick, just a matter of housekeeping too, on V14019, the board has already deferred that. I believe, though, the motion was to defer until December 14th.
No,
December meeting.
December meeting.
2014.
I'm sorry, December 2014, not
Yes, sir.
December 14th.
No,
Yes, sir.
December
Thank you for that.
2014.
Okay, that's fine, because that will be on December 16th,
Yes.
just for the
Yeah.
record. Thank you. very
Yes,
much.
sir. That brings us to V14-021. Angela, would you like to present?
Or are you still in the process of making the call?
Well, I was going to, but.
Well, why don't you make the call?
Make the call.
Yeah,
We
make the
can,
call. We can wait.
let's just,
Yeah, let's.
Take your break.
Yeah. Unless the counselor wants to make the presentation.
Because there's a lot of people that want to.
Well, let me go ahead and do this because I think we have some public comment.
Sure.
And so I will make my call while we do public comment. How about
Okay.
that? Staff is actually going to ask for a deferral until the December meeting on this case as well. In the process of working on the staff report, we discovered that an additional variance was required, and so that's going to take time. I have to re-advertise, and so we just want to make sure everything's covered. And I think we have some public comment.
Do you want to open up the
So-
public comment?
Yeah, any questions to staff
about the
from
deferral?
the board?
No.
Any public comment on V14-021? Is that the one they're here for?
No, they're here for 2-0. But for 2-1, we're deferring.
Well,
We
that's
need-
the recommendation of
That's the
staff.
recommendation, so,
We need a motion then to
so,
defer.
Wait a minute. Which variance are you here for, ma'am?
We have two public comment cards, both are for V14021.
Okay.
oh, 2-1.
And yours are for
The same thing, I didn't realize I had to use it.
021?
Maybe I can bring some clarity to it. This is a variance request, and in the full spirit of disclosure, I happen to live right across the street from where this variance is being requested, so I just want to put that on the record, and so that I'm not here to speak on the topic, but maybe I could bring some clarity to the fact that there's folks here that came to be heard during the public hearing, and I believe it's probably appropriate to actually let the public comment occur, even if your decision is ultimately to defer until next month, until an additional variance can be advertised and sought. So maybe that just provides some clarity as to why there's folks in the audience and what the hope and anticipation is tonight.
Okay. Public comment's open, so, right?
Shouldn't we wait for Angela to come
We
back?
have to wait for Angela.
Do we?
I think so.
Yeah, I think that's a wise thing. I think we, Mr. Chairman, can I make a motion that we take a 5-minute break?
Do we have a second?
I'll give a second.
Any discussion? We have a motion to take a 5-minute break. All in favor, raise your right hand. Opposed, same sign. Passed unanimously.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not what I expected.
Me either. This is all brand new.
reason I showed you that place, I don't know if you'd like to go there versus the other one's a little bit smaller, maybe not quite as noisy.
I don't like noisy.
Right. But Vinny's is a little bit noisy, but then again, it's up to you guys. Which one?
Oh, Vinny, where is this place?
It's right here up on 9, just north of,
You know, you can, I don't know where we go, it doesn't matter to me.
we go to your place, where you go to.
No, no way, I'm not doing it. No,
Oh, I didn't know we were supposed to do that. Not again, Chris, come on.
I'm not doing it.
Just for the record, just be mindful that when we're on break, just watch the conversations and make sure that we're otherwise speaking to the microphone.
I don't know what you guys are talking about.
Okay.
All I've got is,
Angela, you want to tell us what you heard?
No, I think,
we're gonna
yeah.
continue hearing this case.
Mr. Chairman, I know we called for a 5-minute recess. Are you ready to go ahead and with
Yes, sir, we
Angela
are.
Banks? Okay, why don't you go ahead?
So I did speak with the property owner, and it turns out that she has decided to withdraw her variance, and she was under the impression that the pool contractor had informed me. She said she sold her house.
Okay, well, let's finish 21, we'll go back to that.
That's right, because we've made a motion procedurally to go ahead. and-
Yes, let's just go to 21.
So let's,
So did we have any public comment?
We did.
21 we do.
we do.
Oh, okay, I thought that's what you were.
So at this time, I'd like to open the floor for public comment. Before you come up, if you'd state your name and your address for the board, we'd certainly appreciate it.
Our first person for public comment is Chris Elliott.
But Chris Elliott is the person making the application, isn't it?
Well, thank you for hearing us.
Give us 1 second. Angela, according to this, Chris Elliott's the one that's making the application.
That's right.
That's correct?
Yes,
You're the applicant.
yes.
And are you asking for this to be deferred tonight?
Well, staff is.
Well,
staff
that's
is
because there's other consideration.
Okay, got it.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so
ahead.
just to
Go
give you
ahead.
a little bit of background, so we had a survey done on the property, and we were under the impression that we needed 2 variances based on the survey. And those variances are stated here, the 100-foot variance and the parking variance. So we had a landscape engineer create our pool for the community, which you can see here. And yesterday, as we were going through the paperwork, like Angela said, the final paperwork, we realized that there is another variance from the survey that wasn't included. So if it's okay with you, I'd just like to speak to the 2 that are on the table. And if you make a decision to defer the 3rd variance until December, we can do that as well. Whatever you decide is fine. Okay. So I have the plans here that you can see. We live in very much a live, work, play community in Crabapple Station, behind Sip and Cans, behind Vintage Pizza, behind that pond there. So there is a lot between lots 65 and 64 that was designated as a leisure area years and years ago in 2007. The developer was going to put the pool in before he vacated the community. So in 2009, when he went bankrupt and vacated the community, he actually turned that lot over for $1 to the HOA. So 4 or 5 years later, we're actually very healthy, and we're in a position to start reconsidering building the pool. So like I said, we got a survey done. We applied for some variances. We had a landscape engineer create the pool plans, and these are here for you for your consideration tonight.
Any questions?
Yeah, I do have a question.
Sure.
What's the 3rd variance that came up?
It has something to do with power lines. I think Chris could, if he's allowed to tell you. I didn't understand
You
it.
can do anything he wants.
We need your name and
If you could say
address.
your name and address, please.
Ken, Chris Lagerbloom, 680 Dunbrody Drive in Milton. I can tell you that the third variance that was identified on this particular plan dealt with a 25-foot setback to the rear as well as a 10-foot, I believe it was an improvement setback that was identified, believe it or not, on the 2007 plat that was done by the same surveyor that did the 2014 update, and how it wasn't carried forward from one plat to the survey by the same person is still beyond us. But it didn't come up until the original plat was pulled here at City Hall in preparation for tonight's hearing that we realized that the survey that we were relying upon that was stamped and sealed and dated and all that good stuff was missing two things that simply require an additional variance, which will come forward next month for your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you. So just a little bit more detail from the Design Review Board meeting. We received some feedback about an ADA parking place, which we've actually made some changes to the plan since that meeting. I can kind of show you here that we created an ADA parking place, an access parking place, accessible parking place here in front of the community. And we actually went forward with a street view to alleviate any concerns about parking, to do our best. So essentially, the 100-foot variance kills this whole project. It renders the property useless for us in our community. The homes surrounding the pool have been granted the 100-foot variance to enable them to build the houses on that property. So now you can see here, for any sort of parking concerns that might remain, our landscape engineer, Richard, who's here, created a street view for us so that you can actually see the way the property dents in. The homes are here along the side, allowing traffic to flow freely through here, and then any accessible parking can be done inside what would have normally been a street front area with a sidewalk and a vanity strip, we call it in our community. So what I'd like to do, and we're sort of all here, is just to get your thoughts on, at least with those two variances, whether or not you see any concerns, and I'm not sure if this is appropriate, but any feedback you have for us with respect to those two variances for tonight.
You can provide comment and feedback. I don't want you to necessarily forecast your final decision.
Yeah.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
A question for you. How are you with getting letters from adjoining property owners on all three sides and across the street?
So I have the lot 65, the property that sits here, and two of the properties that sit across the street. I'll be honest with you, I have 25 letters in support of the pool from really just a very random, seeing people walking their dog. The community, we have been talking about this pool since 2008. It has always been designated a leisure area. In fact, when we bought our homes in the very beginning, the packet that you got from the sales center had a plot or a drawing of the pool of the neighborhood, and it actually included this lot, and it showed the cute little pool, and it had there was a huge sign up on the property that said future home of Crabapple Station Pool. So it isn't a surprise to anybody. I'm the treasurer of the HOA, so the questions I keep getting are, when will we be able to afford it? Not ever really. When will it happen, or in terms of, is it possible? So our goal when we set out this year before the HOA meeting for our community, that's the end of this year, we decided, let's go find out if this thing is possible. Because people ask about it so often. Let's do our due diligence. Let's pay for a survey. Let's pay for a landscape engineer, and let's see if we can do it. And what we came back with is the need for these variances. So we're very much still in the planning phases of the pool. You will hear some opposition tonight with respect to the pool from a neighbor across the street. And, so my goal was just to go and try to bring to you tonight, without having the whole community come to Deerfield Parkway, was just to bring to you letters showing the support and the overall understanding that the pool was, always something that we planned on having and that we all thought we'd have.
So back to my original question. So right next to it, if I'm looking at that plan on the left-hand side, you have people saying they want it. And are there 2 or 3 houses opposite this?
There are 4.
4, okay.
Yes, so this gentleman that lives here, I've spoken with him multiple times about the pool.
Uh-huh.
Honestly, his biggest concern is there's when the developer cleared the lot from lot 65, this lot, he pushed all of the dirt to here. So this gentleman who bought his house in this condition, his biggest concern is when are we going to get rid of this wall of dirt to his right? So I don't know him well enough to have gotten a letter from him. I'm sure that I could. I'm not particularly sure where he stands with respect to the pool, but I could find out. But I've had many, many conversations with him about it, and he seems generally supportive. I do have letters from two of the homes across the street.
2 out of 4?
2 out of 4. So I have 4 out of 6.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Any other public comment? Sure. And if you would state your name and address for the board, we'd certainly appreciate it.
My name is Lisa Middlestadt, and I live at 688 Dunbrody Drive. I live smack across from the...
Can you show us on the plot exactly where you live?
I believe my house is to the north. I could be wrong, but I think there's houses to the north, south, east, and west of this that are less than 100 feet.
So where are you? If you'll just turn that towards us and then show us where your house is.
Architect might be better at it, but there's 3 houses. There's myself, I'm probably right here. Beth Joyner is right here, and then Tracy, who sits right there, is right here. And then you're not across from it, but you're like right up here. So you're not across from the pool at all. You're just on this street, aren't you? Right next to Beth. Next to Beth. Okay, so there's the Joyners, there's myself, and then there's Tracy. There's also, so I would say that this is north, that I'm north, but I don't think it says on here.
It doesn't matter,
It does-
ma'am.
that's okay.
We know you're
Another
across the
house
street.
behind here, so if you're talking about notifying all the neighbors, there's power lines here behind the pool. There's another house behind here whose property butts up right here. So I think if you're the staff and you're the ones that post the advertisements, I think these people need to know about it too, because this pool is going to be in their backyard closer than 100 feet. So you've got this person, and I don't think that's been addressed at all on here. But that's, you said it doesn't matter if I'm north, but if I'm north, then he's also, so it's to the north, south, east, and west 100 feet. So I'm all in favor of a neighborhood pool if it doesn't require any variances. I think those variances of having a neighborhood pool 100 feet from any house were put in by very intelligent people, and I don't think there's any need to break that rule. One of your Board of Zoning Appeals says that the public safety or relief, if granted, would not cause a substantial detriment to the public good and surrounded properties. I can assure you it'll be a detriment to me because my bedroom window is less than 100 feet from the pool on the ground floor, as is my office. I work from home most of the time. I'm a CPA. I have to concentrate when I work. To have a pool less than 100 feet from my window where my bedroom is and my window where my office is a detriment to me. I can't speak for anybody else here, but it's certainly a detriment to me. That is my biggest concern is the proximity of it, is to have it less than 100 feet. And I would love to have a pool. That's just not the spot for it because it's too small and it's too close to at least 5 houses. I'm also worried about what it's going to look like in the winter because it's such a small piece of property. There's just not a lot of room for wonderful landscaping. That's going to be a noise barrier. And so we're going to be looking at a closed pool less than 100 feet from my property line. And these are very small, tiny pieces of property. It's 0 lot line. I walk out my door in 6 steps. I'm at my mailbox, which is at the property line. Very, very small pieces of property. I also have no driveway. We have 9 houses on our streets, and we share a common driveway. You kind of drive behind the houses, so there's no driveway even in the front of my house to be a buffer between my home and the street and the pool. It looks great because you're not looking at a driveway, and it was a great idea to have all the driveways in the back, but most people park on the street. So I have 2 teenage or 20-something. My son is 22. He parks on the street. People on both sides of us have teenage kids that are maybe in college. When they come home in the summer, they park on the street. Parking is going to be a disaster. I drove over to the subdivision pool across the street that we were just talking about, the Lacoma Trace pool. They have 10 parking spaces and a handicapped space, and it's a fairly small pool. I would imagine it's bigger than the one we're going to build because it's a very large piece of property. They have a pool house, so they have the whole parking lot as buffer, and then they have 20 to 30 feet of landscaping as buffer, and they have woods on all three sides. Unfortunately, this piece of property just does not have that luxury. Again, it would be wonderful to have a subdivision pool. The builder had absolutely no right to tell the subdivision that they were going to put a pool there and to get everybody all excited about it because he didn't have the authority to do so. It's unfortunate that they were told that. I'm sure the people, when they bought the house, sorry, just think I'm missing your giggles up there. You know, I'm sure that the people that he did tell, I wasn't there at the time. I'm new to the subdivision. I've only moved in July. And Tracy as well only moved in July. And I think you're new too to the subdivision. So those people were not, you know, there's been some turnover. But it's a shame that he told them that. But it's a waste of time to talk about it because it doesn't matter what he told them. He didn't have the authority to say the city of Milton is going to grant you these two variances or now a third variance with the power lines in the back. So I don't even know why we're talking about that the builder, you know, the builder said that that's where the pool was going to be. Again, my biggest concern, noise. I am entitled to the right of quiet enjoyment in my home, and I just don't see how that's going to be a possibility with a pool less than 100 feet from my house. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, we did have one more card, Richard Owens.
Okay. Ma'am, were you going to speak?
Okay.
Just to let the record reflect, Mr. Owens was called and didn't have anything else to add.
Okay. Will you be able to come back next month again, since this is deferred, to speak again, or would you rather send the city a letter that we could just incorporate into the?
What is it, December? Is there a date on schedule?
It's the third Tuesday, whatever that would be.
16th.
16th.
That'd be wonderful.
That would be terrific. Pardon me?
So since she's on record.
Oh,
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
so Council, we're okay if she, because we've heard her comments.
That's right. I mean, this public hearing is
Okay.
on the record.
Okay,
All right.
perfect.
I've got to get Chris up.
you are more than welcome,
What, to come back?
if you would
But
like.
but not required.
But you don't have to, correct.
Because there's a little bit of confusion. Your comments were on the record, so we can take those into consideration when hearing this case next month,
But,
without you being present, excuse me.
but you may hear more comments that you, in other words, none of us have a report to actually read and understand this case. All we have is a picture that we're seeing up here on the screen, and it's very hard for us to rebut what we're actually talking about. Normally, we have a formal package from staff, and we do not have that package right now. So all I could say is that we're listening to public comment, but we may have more questions for the applicant as well as anyone who comes. So
Any questions to staff from the board? Yes.
back to the parking, what is required for parking on this property? I notice it doesn't mention anything, it says mentions without required parking, but if they did have parking, what's required?
Okay, let me see if I can do this off the top of my head. It's 6 spaces up to the first 50 houses, I think, and then it's 1 per 16 lots afterwards. So at least 6.
Okay. And the measurement that's being made for the pool deck and pool equipment is measured from the property lines to the edge of all these items, be it the pool deck, and
For
pool
the 100
equipment.
feet?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
But I don't see any mention of the building in that variance. I see pool deck, and pool equipment. In most cases, pool equipment's in the building, but is the building included, that it can't be closer than 100 feet? Or is it like the houses, it has a building setback?
Right, the building follows the lot setbacks, and in T4, that overlay, it's like 10 feet from the road.
Okay, so we're not discussing the clubhouse, it's
The
just
clubhouse
purely?
is fine.
Okay, all right. But specifically for pools, pool decks, and pool equipment, it does have a special ordinance that requires those to be further away from a property line.
It's 100 feet from any interior property lines, meaning the sides, and/or any property that's residential in use.
Okay. And with the property that's behind it, where the power line is, that also includes their property as well?
If it's residential, it would affect the 100 feet, yes.
Do you happen to know if the power line is a residential property, or is it considered a utility property? In other words, is it owned by the utility company and therefore not considered residential, or do they have an easement over someone's property?
I'd have to look at the plat to be sure. I think it goes in and out. Let's see. Actually, I have an aerial. I'm thinking it's an easement. I'm thinking it's an easement through actual property, because I see some what look like lot lines.
Well, I can answer your question just as from this. It's a 100-foot Oglethorpe power easement that exists there.
But you don't think they have fee simple ownership then? It may just purely be,
No, it's an easement.
It does not, no,
I would
it
be-
does not look as though it's
I would
owned
be-
in fee.
Yeah, I would be blown away if they did.
okay.
It looks like it's part of the, it's incorporated into all the lots.
So perhaps one of the comments we heard tonight is to make sure that we advertise correctly all surrounding properties. In this current form, it says west, south, and east.
We did 300 feet from the property, so that rear property did receive a letter, and it will receive one in the second round.
Right, but just from a wording standpoint and advertising, it probably should say from all property lines, all surrounding property.
That's what happens. We do a buffer from the center
Okay.
of the property.
And
We
our-
incorporate all of them.
Are parking spaces, would they also be governed by any of these setbacks as far as where a parking space could be? In other words, let's just take one of Lisa's comments about parking. Is there any way they could put parking along the street that perhaps is a little jog in to create parking? Is that something that could be considered, or is it something that staff could ask the applicant to look at? Is possibly allow parking in front of the project being a parallel parking, and whether they have to add a little bit more asphalt or curb? And, I'm not necessarily saying that they allow them to park in the street, but, actually make sure it's wide enough for emergency vehicles or whatever they like. I mean, they could also perhaps even stripe it for a parking space in front of the pool if they wanted to. It's up to public safety and such, whether it's a safe place to park or not. But from what I understand, these parking spaces would have to be on their property. It's not like they could allow those parking spots to be on a public street. And I guess that's what I'm trying to find out. If they could widen the street, that would not be on their property, it would be within the right-of-way. Does that make sense?
On-street parking is allowed in the crabapple overlay. We'd have to look. I think with the site distance on that particular area, it would have to be kind of a jog like they're showing there. And I think that way that they could count it towards their, their parking. But
Okay.
the final decision would be by, Public Works, once they see site distance and all of that.
Sure. Okay.
Any other questions to staff? This time I'd like to close the public hearing, and the floor is open for a motion.
Can we have the applicant come back and rebut anything?
Oh, sure. At this time, if you'd like to come back and make a rebuttal or closing statement, you are more than welcome.
Okay. Well, I was just going to address your question about the parking, the on-street parking. That's something we can definitely do. We can look at that. Our community is very much a walking community, so we're not sure if it's necessary. And frankly, to Lisa's point, I think it could be worse to have cars than to have no cars. So my bus stop, for example, where I take my daughter, is further away than any one home would walk to get to this pool. Because we walk. We walk to Cans and Sip and Vintage Pizza, and we walk. So I don't think that having, like what Crabapple Crossroads has, they need that. They absolutely have to have a parking place. It's far. But in our community, there's no good reason to drive, which is why we allowed an accessible parking place. Because in that case, there is a good reason. But if we could encourage everybody to walk to the pool and to put a bike rack up and for this to be a walking community, which is what it was designed to be in the first place, I think that looks better. I think it allows the traffic to flow better. And I think that's better for the homes surrounding the area as well.
Can I ask her some questions? Sure. Are you an HOA that's a mandatory HOA? A mandatory membership? In other words, you have to, if you live there, you have to pay and contribute towards that HOA?
Yes. We are considering not requiring the pool to be mandatory from the beginning.
Okay, big mistake, but go on.
Well, yeah, and good. That's good feedback because we haven't made any
Only
official.
having managed about 40 of them, I can tell you.
Okay.
Don't get into this yet.
Okay.
We're good. Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
Okay.
okay, is your pool going to be open 12 months a year?
No.
What time period are you thinking of having your pool open?
And we can do this anyway. I haven't really given it a ton of thought, but my thought is that we would be open from May to October. But we could be open all year. We could allow the pool facilities and the upper deck to be open for gatherings. We have a lot of common area in our neighborhood. We have parks, and we have a dog park and a pond where people gather. So creating an additional year-round gathering place is not our goal.
Have you talked to Fulton County Health Department to define whether your pool deck or pool, and for that matter, bathrooms are large enough based on the plan that you provided?
Yes, that is something that Richard took into account when he did our plans.
Okay. So we do know we're looking at a plan that the deck has to be that size, the pool has to be that size, and the building has to be that size to meet the health department requirements.
Richard, you're going to have to come forward and state your name and address if you.
You want me to just? Is my understanding of it?
Let's just defer.
Okay.
These aren't questions we should ask.
But I just want to be ready.
Yeah, I know.
That's something that we'll be ready to answer.
Okay.
I know for sure that the building. I believe that what Richard would tell you is that we made the pool larger than we needed to, because we are considering inviting the community across the pond, which would also be a walking community, to join the pool as well for financial purposes. So the pool is larger than it would need to be, but everything else is according to his meetings that he also had with the Milton City architect.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This time the floor is open for a motion.
Make a motion to defer V14-021 to the next scheduled meeting in December 2014.
We have a second.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor of deferring V14-021 to the December 2014 meeting, raise your right hand. Opposed, same side. Passed unanimously. Thank you all very much. See you next month.
We have one more case to finish up.
That brings us back to V14-020. Angela, would you like to tell us exactly what happened in your phone call?
The property owner informed me that she has sold her house and she is no longer interested in building a pool. And she thought the pool contractor had informed me of this. So we would like to go ahead and defer it this month so we can put it on the agenda for next month as a to be withdrawn.
Why not?
I have to get a formal letter from her
Yeah.
and then advertise it as to be withdrawn. It's to be put on the agenda as to be withdrawn formally.
Okay. Makes sense.
Do we have a motion from the board?
I'd like to make a motion to defer V14-020 to the December 2014 meeting.
Do we have a second?
I'll second for discussion.
Okay, discussion?
Why are we deferring if they are going to withdraw? Do we need to have a formal letter?
Were you just asleep?
You
I
gotta
guess
pay-
it was.
You gotta pay, get off your phone and pay attention.
Okay,
She just said that's exactly what, she has to advertise it.
okay.
And she needs a letter.
Any other discussion?
What's the process on that? Do you guys contact just to make sure that they're coming?
That's funny.
How does that
It
work?
is. I'm sorry.
She just said that.
It's never happened.
I
I
mean,
know.
sometimes, not always.
Okay.
Sometimes I'll send out an email, see you tonight, but
Right.
usually I don't.
I'm at 3.
We have a motion and a second.
Let's,
Well, they're still discussing.
our fellow council member.
All in favor of deferring V14-020 to the December 2014 meeting, raise your right hand. Opposed, same side. Passed unanimously. Any consideration of appeals, Angela?
No, sir,
Any old business?
none for me,
Any new business?
none for me.
Do we have a motion to
I'd
adjourn?
like to make a motion to adjourn the November 2014 meeting.
Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Any discussion? We have a motion and a second to adjourn this BZA meeting. All in favor, raise your right hand. Passed unanimously.
You and